So, welcome to this exciting episode of the Lightleader podcast. And this episode, we have a special guest with us, and it's David Stiles, and he is a coach and mentor for the heart. So he guides people to go from all the mess we have in our mind, our head, and go into the biggest guide that we ever have, and that is the guide that relies within our heart. And his clients get amazing results, so he will share a little bit what a difference it makes for you to actually tune into your heart and follow that guidance. And David is actually also my partner, my beloved. So we will be a little personal here and share our story about how we met, because it actually is a story about finding and listening and follow the guidance of the heart, which we did in a very special way. So I hope you will enjoy today's episode. So, welcome to this episode of the Lightleader podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me. And this episode's it has the theme about how to live from your heart in your life and business, and what difference that actually make. And therefore, I have an expert with me here today, and it is actually my fiancé, David Stiles. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me onto your Lightleader podcast.
Yeah, beautiful to have you here. I have thought about to have you here for a long time, and now was the time.
It's all happening.
So I think that this episode, we're gonna dive into both your work that you do with clients, because you coach people, or what would you say?
Yeah, you could say coaching, but I suppose it's more like mentoring and guiding people. As opposed to pure coaching. So it's more the mentoring, guiding people to get that direct experience of what it is to not just be in the heart, but also to live from the heart space each moment throughout the day.
Yeah. And this is fantastic, because this is something we have done actually before we met. We met 7 years ago. We're going to tell a little bit about our story there, because our story is actually, I would say that we wouldn't have met if we were not tuning into our heart and letting that heart guiding us. Because, for example, we were on different sides of the world. So I was in Sweden and you were in Australia. And this guidance was so strong from our heart. Even if we didn't know each other, we didn't know even that we existed, but that pulled us together. So I'm thinking that could maybe be a good start, because this is about, for me, a light leader is not only that when you are a light leader that you thrive in your business and your contribution in the world, it's also that you thrive in your life. So you are guided in every step. We are all guided. So it's just a matter of listen to that guidance, and not only listen, it's also to follow. And you're talking a lot about that, following the pull of the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to share a bit about that, or share a bit about how we met?
Yeah, you can maybe start with what is follow the pull of your heart.
Yeah, there's so many love songs written about follow your heart. What does that mean?
Yeah.
But that it's one of the things that I teach in living from the heart, is that there's a force, a greater force that's guiding everything, like everything. And this is what I was following when we met. And for me, it's like literally like a pull on the heart, like this force that comes from source is guiding everything. Each moment, like it guides the animals, it guides the trees, it guides the rivers, it guides the weather patterns. That's just on our Earth. It guides the other planets, it guides the solar system. This universal force is guiding everything. And for me, I experience that as a pull, like as a physical pull on the heart, and that's what I help people to tune into. Not just in meditation, but especially in day-to-day life, like especially around people in their world, because that's what really makes the difference. That's living from the heart space each moment. So that's a little bit about the pull.
Yeah. And it's so much magic starts to happen when we follow this pull, like things that we never thought that could happen. So I can just start from my perspective how we met. And I'm gonna try to make the story short because it's a long story, but the short story was that I was living in Sweden, south of Sweden, in Malmö, and I had a great life. I really did. I had practiced this kind of tuning into my heart many years, and I was like really feeling that there is something for me, and next step, but I don't know what it is. And the thing was that I started to have many nightmares, actually, or I would not say nightmares, but I would say that when I woke up in the mornings, I didn't feel good at all. And I didn't understand why, because I felt that I had a great life. I didn't have a lot of worry going on in my life, but it was something every morning that I felt this heavy feeling. So I felt that there is something there in my unconscious mind that try to come true, but I can't reach it. I try to feel it from just feeling okay, sitting in meditation, but it didn't really come true. So I learned to remember my dreams, and I remember that they had the same message. It was nearly the same things that happened in my nightly dreams. And that was that I was traveling somewhere every night it was different transports. And then something happened and I couldn't come through. I missed the train, the boat, the flight or whatever. So I sat with my heart actually and tuned in. What does this mean? What wants to come true here? And what came true was that I actually should travel. And I was not so keen about it first. So I tried to feel into, okay, if I'm gonna travel, where am I gonna travel? And my rational mind made up like, okay, I'm gonna go to India because I have friends that are going there right now and so on. But then when I tuned in deeper, Australia came. It came. That felt like an expansion when I thought about that. It was like my heart was opening up somehow. So I had a friend in Australia and I contacted her and said, hey, I'm coming over. And she was like, sure. And she said, we put a date actually, but then she said, come earlier because there's gonna be something happening on a gathering in Ireland, Tasmania. So come earlier and we go there. We're gonna go there and camp. And I was thinking, this is crazy because I actually had never really traveled myself that far, like alone. And then the thought of going to Australia, we all know what we have heard about Australia. It's all these dangerous animals. There's like these spiders that want to attack you, and the sharks are jumping up from the ocean, and
Just wish there was a spider.
yeah, exactly. So I was like, this is crazy. Like going out to this little island and camp in the forest, but my heart was just like, it was a full yes. So I did it. And while all this happened for me, and I was like on my way preparing and actually flying over, there was something that happened for you. So you can maybe take over your pull of your heart.
Yeah, sure. Like I was back then, 7 years ago. Yeah, I was mainly in my heart space back then, like by far the vast majority of the time. Sometimes I would be slipping back into the head, but mainly here, and then head, heart, head, heart, head, heart. So it was really about integrating these ways of the heart for me. And that's what I find with people that I work with, that they're often flipping between the head and the heart, the head to heart. They have these beautiful, amazing connective experiences, but then go back into the head and the stress, the anxiety, and that sort of effort. So I was in a similar space. So I was working really hard, like a little bit too hard. And there wasn't a lot of joy in my life back then. There was, but it wasn't all the time. So I did a heart talk on it. I journaled in my heart journal, and the word joy came through, and I was like, okay, well, what's that? And the guidance was to call a friend who organised these gatherings in the forests, where there's a lot of joy happening there, a lot of connection. And I'm like, okay, so ring my friend. What else? And a visual came through, which I sketched out, which was like Australia, like a map of Australia, Bali, and then Sweden, and then an aeroplane. And I was like, okay, joy, Bali, Sweden. I don't get it, but I'll just go with it. So I took action on that inner guidance from Source, and rang up my friend. And I'm like, yeah, what's these like gatherings? And he's like, well, there's one happening in Tasmania. I'm like, right, when's that? And he's like, 4 days. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And then I went for a walk. Got guided following the pool to go for a walk down in the town I was living, and just randomly bumped into a friend that I hadn't seen for quite some time. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, well, yeah, I'm about to go down to Tasmania. And I said, oh, for a gathering in the forest. And she's like, yeah, how'd you know? And I'm like, that just wanted to come through. And she's like, yeah, do you want to come with me? So I'm like, love to. So I drove down to Sydney with her and flew from Sydney to Tasmania. And then a lot of synchronicities happened to actually get to this place in the forest. And hitchhiking and all of this stuff, buses, and finally went and got there. And never been to something like this. And I'm walking down the hill, and there's really beautiful scene by a river, and all these beautiful people. And I'd set up my tent, and then I was finding the pool to go to where the food was being served. I'm walking across this big paddock in the forest, and as I'm walking, there's this beautiful woman also walking, and we're just going to cross paths. And I said, hi. And she looked at me and she said, hi. And I said, how you going? And I touched her here on the shoulder, and I just got this electric come through my body. And she's like, yeah, I'm Patricia. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, where's your accent from? She said, Sweden. I said, oh, it's funny. I'm going to Sweden this summer. And she said, really? And I'm like, well, that's what I wrote in my heart journal. So I suppose I am. And yeah, that was 7 years ago. So that's how we met.
Yeah, it's a very special story because that was 7 years ago, and what have happened since then is that we have really supported each other, not only in life but also in who we are and in our purpose, in our contribution in the world and in our business. So it's really about really listening and follow that pull. And that can make the whole difference, because there was so much there that, I could have sit home in Sweden and choose to go to India instead, if I would just have followed my head, because that was really natural. And you could have, I don't know, not gone to this place, for example.
Yeah, it's so much of it. Like all I know is when I listen to the guidance, act on it, follow the pull of my heart, speak from my heart, like really be living, like integrated in day-to-day life, like synchronicities become normal. And the reason for that, like we're talking about the pull on the heart, is that I come into alignment with the universal force that's guiding everything. Like even meeting my friend down the street, the pull was to go down the street. I was like, why am I going down the street? My head was saying that. But I just went with it anyway, and then she turns up and and got a lift. So
Yeah.
it's really about integrating this way of the heart into day-to-day life, and that's when the synchronicities become normal, a flow happens, and you really get to live the life that you're meant to be living in this lifetime.
Yeah. You're so guided on the way. So it's not about knowing the whole path, knowing exactly. It's just to follow the inner guidance. So I'm curious, David, if you would like to share about, because I know David has worked with so many clients, and also, yeah, what kind of clients do you feel very passionate to work with, first of all?
Oh yeah, like definitely people that are already on the spiritual path, that have already done a lot of the work. Like a lot of the work is sort of, where I see a lot of people stuck is like in the past or in the patterns of the mind, on what's not working, doing regression therapy, all of that stuff, which is important, and I've been through all that, but I really love to work with people that have sort of resolved a lot of that, and they feel in a place where, okay, what's next? Okay, I've looked at all of the shit in the past, but this is where I am now, and where is it that I really want to be? So what I find is a lot of the people that reach out to me have had these connective experiences with the heart space, where those synchronicities become normal, where they've experienced that flow of life, where they've had those deep, meaningful, connective relationships with self and other people. But they can't sustain it, like they can't hold that. They know it's there, they've experienced it, but they keep going back into the head and the old patterns, and then they might flip down into the heart space again, but they don't know how they got there. But they've had those experiences and then they go back. So really love working with people that know the space of the heart, and they're wanting that to be consistent in their day-to-day life.
Yes.
So that they're living from the heart, because one person living from the heart space holds such a massive space in the world, of contribution, of service, to help awaken that within other people. So that's what I really and passionate about, and is helping people that want that consistent living from the heart space in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, beautiful. And just if you would share a little bit about some example, because I know that the most of your clients have give permission of you sharing their story. So if you would just share one or two stories about what results that actually have happened in your clients when they have when they're coming into the heart and start to living that on an even bigger scale in their life.
Yeah, so many examples that yeah, I suppose one that's really standing out is a client I was working with in America. His name's Bill. And he'd been on the spiritual path for 30, 40 years, and he had done everything: chakra balancing, shamanic drumming, sweat lodges, crystal bowls, meditation, regression therapy. It just went on and on and on.
And he was a therapist as well.
He was a space holder himself. A counselor in the spiritual world, and he was feeling a bit, when he came to me anyway, he was feeling a bit stuck on his spiritual journey, because he had had all of these peak experiences, and then he had experienced the sort of peaks and troughs like that. And he was wanting to get out of that high-low sort of pattern and stabilize. So we spoke, we had a conversation, and I'm like, well, the heart is consistent, it's constant, it doesn't fluctuate. So when you're living from the heart space, the synchronicities happen, and the head will go, oh, that's amazing, which it is, but from the heart, it's just normal.
Yeah.
So he was looking for that. And because he wasn't centered, grounded in that space, there was a disconnect. It was impacting his business with the clients that he was attracting, because he wasn't resonating at that vibration, at that level. And at the point, like, he was in his early 60s, he had to go back and live with his parents because he couldn't afford rent. And then he came into the work, and he had a couple of clients he was working with, but his business hadn't taken off. So he embraced the techniques, he applied them, he did an amazing job of implementing it in day-to-day life. He was getting the messages, he was taking the inspired action from within. He was following the pull of his heart, he was staying grounded in his heart. Even if his head was getting loud, he could come back. More importantly, he was speaking directly from his heart space in the world, that vibration, that resonance. And the combination of all of those is what really allowed Bill to move forward, because he grounded in his true self. But in the words he spoke, he started coming from a deeper place within. And as soon as he started doing that, a flood of clients came in. Within a couple of months, he had enough to pay rent again. His spiritual practice filled up. He reconnected with a woman, and they moved in together. And he said that was not going to be possible. He resolved all of the issues between his parents. So there's just love and connection there. And the end result is that he's out in the world again, being the fullest expression of who he really is. And that's what's making the impact on the clients that he's working with, because he holds that space of the heart for them to come into.
Yeah. And that's so beautiful. And that's what we know. The more we actually step into our true self, the more can come out and support the world. So it's not only affecting us, it also goes as ripples effect all over the world as well, if that's the thing we want. But in some way it does, because it will affect, the more we are in our heart, it will affect the people around us. Yeah. Is it short? Is it some else story you would like to share that you know you are allowed to share from clients?
Yeah, sure. There's another beautiful lady, sort of in her late 50s, early 60s, from New Zealand. And all she'd ever wanted to do was own a retreat center. And that's what she wanted to do. And she was right into the heart connection work. She was actually doing her PhD thesis on interbeingness. So sort of like what you were saying there, like the ripple effect from the heart space going out. So different beings being in that vibrational connection. So, for example, you've got kangaroos, but like if a magpie, like a bird, lets off a warning or an alarm call, that'll alert the kangaroos to look out for danger. That's the interbeingness. Yeah? But she was working at a vibrational level, and she was doing a PhD. She knew all of the theory about it. So much, like more than what I do, but in that specialized field. But she wasn't experiencing it. Like she wasn't actually living it. And then she came into the work. She learned how to get out of her head. She learned how to come into her heart, and then to live, like to listen to the guidance, to speak from the heart directly, to follow the pull. And again, she did the work to embrace it in day-to-day life, because that's what makes the difference. She was after transformation, not information. So she asked her heart, okay, heart, what's with this retreat center? You know, what's the next step? And she got the guidance, and then she started going into the world with that guidance. She started speaking from her heart space, following the pull, and this place opened up. She was studying like a full-time PhD student, right? And yeah, a couple of months after she came through the program, she emailed me and said, "Hey, David, I just bought a retreat center." And I'm like, "What? I'd love to have a call with you just to see what happened." So yeah, she was following all that guidance. There's a sacred mountain from the Maoris surrounded by all these other mountains, which was called the Heart Mountain, because it was surrounded by all these mountains, a stream running through. Beautiful property. Her kids also moved in to the property, and their little ones as well. So it was sort of had that whole family feel to it. But she said, yeah, when I was coming to inspect the property, out here I couldn't get reception on my phone. So I didn't actually know how to get there, and I was running late, and the real estate agent could only make like one thing, like one booking. And so she said if I didn't come, like I wouldn't have been able to get the property. And I said, what did you do? And she said, well, I pulled over, closed my eyes, and I said, what would David do? And she said he'd follow the pull in his heart. So she did. And she's driving through the countryside, and then she gets to this gate, and she's like, it's down here. That's the pull. So she went down, and the real estate agent's there. She's like 2 minutes early, inspected the property, and yeah, the whole financial side, that's a whole other story. But yeah,
It came to place as well.
Yeah, it all fell into place.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And I think this is what you mentioned here also about, sometimes as this lady also, and I can recognize myself and so many people, that we have read so much, we have so much knowledge, we know the theory, but we haven't implemented. We haven't, we have maybe tried, but it haven't really dropped down so it feels embodied. And that's really, I would say, the power of follow the pull of the heart, follow the guidance of the heart, that you go into actually practice that, and the wisdom come from that. Yeah. And then you don't have to know all the all the theories either. Yeah. Yes, so beautiful. And I would like to talk a little bit about how you work, because it's very similar how I also prefer to work. And that is, we both started in our own, coaching businesses and with one-to-one, uh, like one-to-one client. But what we have found is that is something really special that happens when you have a group of people that you coaching or mentoring. So can you just explain what you have seen, what difference you've seen, and what that is all about?
Yeah, good question. I suppose the first thing I see, like, especially on the spiritual part, like what I teach is very simple, like very simple techniques that are dynamic in nature, which means that they can be applied practically in day-to-day life, like very step by step. So if people follow those, they will start living from the heart space. That's just like a given. But what I've found over the years is that even with those techniques, there's one thing that is missing big time in a lot of the courses and the workshops. That's an integration phase, like to actually integrate what you learn. Like, I'm sure we've all been to those weekend workshops. We've had these like amazing highs. A week later, come into daily life and it's like, oh yeah, what was all that about? So really implementing, integrating, and a massive part of that is what's called the law of natural resonance, whereby, like, if you have two guitars next to each other and you pluck the E string of one guitar, the E string of the other guitar will start vibrating. So with the heart connection work, it's very much like that. Like, if you're surrounded by a group of people that are all in their heart space and resonating from that level, it's so easy to be in the heart space. And that's the space I hold for people. But more so, like, that law of natural resonance is also, like, that's the mentoring aspect and the guide, that guidance. But also peer-to-peer mentoring. So other people on the same journey, going through the same thing. And the power of story. You can't really read a book and get the power of story. But being around a group of like-hearted people on the same path that are sharing their stories and their wins, like, that's how we learn. That's how we're set up, like, as tribal people. Thousands of years ago, it would be through the stories, and that's why the oral culture was so strong on stories. So that's what I've found over the years, that there's a real power in being in a group of like-hearted people. And that's why I shifted out of working one-on-one with people into a group environment, like a group model where we all connect on Zoom. Like, we had one Zoom call 2 days ago, and it went for 90 minutes, and by the end people are like, oh, it's already 90 minutes, like, I don't want to go. And what people have shared with me, like that resonance, like, it gives like a momentum in their day-to-day life, because it's like I go surfing quite a bit, or I used to, well, I still do, but yeah, big waves, right? My identity gets scared around massive waves, but if there's a group of surfers out there in the surf all bobbing up and down these huge waves, I'm like, well, they're doing it, so why can't I do it? So I just paddle out and the fear's not there. And it's the same, exact same, that's the law of natural resonance for surfers. Exact same, the heart connection when you're around a group of like-hearted people. It's like, well, they just spoke to their partner about what's not working from their heart space. Why can't I just sit in my heart and talk to my partner, Or, wow, she's out in the world because she's like following her heart. I'm just like stuck at home doing not much in my room. Why can't I just go out and follow the pull of the heart and see what happens in a shopping centre? And then they come back next week with that momentum, and it just like feeds off each other. So it's not really something that you can learn. It's more the experience of it, and that's what I'm really big on. isn't about learning, it's a transformation and that experience of what it is to fully live from the heart space.
Beautiful. And what I also have seen, it's very much what you touch on here, but it's, this peer-to-peer, it's like when people come together, there's a reason, there's a divine higher reason why, just that and that and that and that person are in the same group as well. So even if, maybe you feel you can't really connect to some of the people, but there's something there in you that you can learn. There's something there. If you just tune into your heart, there's so much guidance and wisdom in what you can see, observe, and hear in those other people. So to also have an openness always for this, that's when magic happens, and that's when we start to really see and hear and understand things on a deeper level, so we can embody them and practice them in our life.
Yeah, and that's what brings the results. It's the embodiment. Right? It's not about learning more information. It's really about being in life, because that's where you really learn. That's where it gets integrated, so it becomes your default way of being again, which is what it would have been when you're a little kid. So it's sort of coming full circle back. So this becomes your default way of being again.
Yes. Yes. I think that's a beautiful way to end it all, to come back to your truth.
Yeah.
And just before I let you go, where can people find you if they feel a pull from their heart towards you?
Next to my fiance. Or if I'm not with my fiance, you can find me on my website, davidstyles.com. So just my name.com. And yeah, there's you can sign up, you can download what I call the Head to Heart formula, which is a PDF. You can download that on there. And yeah, if you're feeling ready to explore this deeper connection with your heart space, you can also book in a Head to Heart session with me. It's a complimentary call where we get absolute clarity on your personalized heart alignment plan. Yeah, so by the end of the call, you'll have that absolute clarity, personalized for your exact life situation. So if that calls to you, please be in touch.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for taking your time and having you here and sharing your wisdom and story.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the invitation, and thank you for taking the time to be here, to explore these ways of the heart and through the Lightleader.
Yes. Okay. Hope to see you later. Take care. Wasn't that a fabulous episode? I hope you have a lot of things to take with you, and most of all the importance to really go in within here. And if you're curious to know more and get more inspirations like this, just look at the links below, because there you can find David's information and my information as well, where you find us. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because I will share a lot of yummy stuff here that really can support you in the best way. So take care.